Yeah, here we go now, baby. We are right back. In to the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Thursday edition. Before you bet, right here on the Covers YouTube channel, make sure you smash that subscribe button right down there. The first show of 2024. A lot of excitement for the new year around here at Covers. But I'll tell you one thing, not a lot of excitement because there's no Thursday night football game tonight. I know we all complain about these games. We all make fun of these games, but we got no Thursday night football. First time in months now. And I got to tell you, I don't like it. I'd be very happy to take a Zach Wilson, Tommy DeVito Battle of New York game here tonight. How fun would that be to bet on? Just take the under. You'd make out pretty good. But still, so no Thursday night football, but lots to discuss here from a betting perspective. Some interesting angles here in week 18 that we're going to get into. I'm going to give you guys my plays for the two Saturday games. Then I'll give you my Sunday plays tomorrow. Jingles will be along to share his two favorite plays of the weekend. Then Brad Powers will be joining us. We're going to do a deep dive here on the national championship game on the spread and total. Brad will rejoin us on the day of the game on Monday, get into some props, some live betting angles, things of that nature. And I will end today's show with two games in the NBA. What's going on in the sports world tonight? But I do have a play that I do like very much, so that will be at the tail end of the show. Okay, let's get into it here with my first guest, my guy. The man with the sexiest smile in all of sports betting. Jingles, no Thursday night football. What are we going to do with ourselves here when there's no football? Start living an actual life? Maybe pick up a hobby or two?
Yeah, spend some time with the family, read a book. Yeah, not look at our watches at 7:49, making sure everyone's falling asleep so you can make sure to get those 15 minutes of awesome pregame Thursday night football action that mean nothing.
Yeah, I was thinking of reading a book at some point myself, too. But what I wouldn't give for the Aiden O'Connell Easton Stick rematch here on Thursday night, but we don't have it. We'll have to get into something else. Watch a little NBA here tonight. But let's get into some of our plays for Week 18. A bit of a tricky week here. Different motivation, different players in and out of the lineup. So let's try to navigate it here with a few of our favorite angles. I'm going to get us started with the first game of the week. Saturday late afternoon kickoff here between the Steelers and the Ravens. I like under 35.5. Big under show today, by the way. So 6 straight unders between these teams, with 5 of them failing to cross 30 points. So rock bottom scoring in this matchup here. 2 of these games that failed to cross 30 points came late last season, where Tyler Huntley was the starter for Baltimore. And Huntley's 6 starts last season, as you recall, he came in when Lamar Jackson got injured. And those 6 starts, the average combined score in those games was just 26.8. Steelers come into this game pretty hot offensively. 64 total points scored in their last 2 games. You really do have to consider the competition here, though. The Bengals and the Seahawks have been 2 of the worst defenses in the NFL down the stretch. That's who they faced. So big uptick in competition. And this one, and you take a look at both defenses. They're elite in the red zone for the entire season. Each of them ranks in the top 5 in red zone defense. Red zone offense, that's a real weakness for the Steelers. 29th in that category over the course of the season. And sloppy weather is not going to help the offenses in this game. Rain all afternoon in Baltimore. Their current forecast has the rain at its heaviest right around kickoff and into the early evening. So give me under 35.5 in this NFC North rivalry game. Okay, Jingles, your first best bet. What are we getting into?
Let's keep the unders rolling here. Josephine, Denver, Vegas, O'Connell, Jared Stidham, under 38. Could easily see this moving down as the week goes on here. The only thing probably changing this or keeping this up is Marvin Mims and Cortland Sutton's possible attendance in this game after missing last week. They were limited this week. But right now, we're starting to see some money come in on Vegas. There's a bit more of a motivational factor with the team wanting Antonio Pierce to be the coach. So game script kind of is looking like Las Vegas leading, running the ball heavy. Zamir White seeing 20 carries in back-to-back games. Both teams bottom 10 pace of play. So we're going to see very slow game, period. Out of the gate, both these teams already one of the lowest passing volume offenses in all of football. There's not a lot to like in a passing game. I don't like Jarrett Stidham playing from behind in this situation. Vegas could easily roll here. They've moved, like I said, from 2.5 to 3. There's a lot getting going here. A big thing, obviously, Denver wants to run the ball. Jarrett Stidham's their quarterback. Of course they want to, but they're running into the number one run defense since Antonio Pierce has kicked off things since week 9 per success rate. They're going to want to run the ball. They're not going to be able to. They're going to be behind the sticks. Jarrett Stidham will Jarrett Stidham, and this game will just slow down. For a team that plays indoors, they've been one of the best under teams at 11-5 on the season. Vegas has, and I think that trend continues at 38. Don't be surprised if it closes at 37.5 or 37.
Do you think they'll bring back Antonio Pierce, or do you think they should bring him back as the head coach?
Well, we saw what they did with what was his name in 2020? Rich Bisaccia, exactly. So Bisaccia didn't get the vote of confidence. They played well under him. They closed out the season well with him. Devontae Adams was on the podium talking about that the team that Antonio Pierce has his vote of confidence and that the team is playing for him, and that's really what's kind of driving this 2.5s and moving to 3. Massive motivation factor. Antonio Pierce looks like he has the locker room, and it would be silly for management kind of to pass up another hard-nosed coach that got the team to play for him and then turn things over to someone like I think the move was from Bisaccia to Josh McDaniels, wasn't it? Like it was. No, you shake your head. Like they've learned from that mistake. I think they should keep things in-house and play for a coach. It's not a team with a lot of talent, but AP's got them to play, and if you got a number one run defense, they'll change things.
Yeah, that completely blew up in their face when they got rid of Bisaccia and brought in McDaniels. Now, unless Harbaugh or Belichick or one of these guys might be able, as a coach says, hey, I want to coach the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, keep it going with Pierce here. The team is responding to him as the head coach. Okay, the nightcap here on Saturday. A bit of a weird play for me, but hear me out. So Texans, Colts, I'm going to take the under in the first half. 23.5 is the number. So the Texans are 7-0 to the first half under on the road, with those games seeing an average combined score of just 13.1 in the first half. The Texans are allowing just 5.7 first half points on the road. That's second to just the Ravens. It includes matchups versus good offenses like the Ravens, like the Bengals when Joe Burrow was playing, and against the Jaguars before their season fell off a cliff. You take a look at C.J. Stroud on the road. His numbers are taking a hit. Just 4 touchdown passes in 6 games. QB rating dips 22.5 points on the road compared to at home. An average of just 6.5 first half points for the Texans in Stroud's last 4 starts on the road. And I think Gardner Minshew and this Colts offense might be in a little bit of trouble here. The Houston pass rush in recent weeks, absolutely ferocious. 21 sacks in the last 5 games. So tough spot for Minshew. Last time he faced a team with a good pass rush was 2 weeks ago against the Falcons. He was sacked 6 times. The Colts scored just 10 points in that game. So I'll take a low-scoring first half at least here on Saturday night. Okay, Jingles, bring it home for us. Your second best bet here for the weekend.
Another ugly game. Jets, Patriots. But hey, when we're handicapping these games early in the week, at least we know who's playing in these ugly games. But let's get it. One more ride on the cash cow of New England team total under at a gigantic number here, 16.5, minus 125, playing this to 14.5. This is the lowest scoring offense in football at 14.6 points. And you're telling me that they're going to pass this number versus a very good Jets defense, we'll call it, and the weather conditions look horrendous on the East Coast here. We're talking 30-mile-an-hour winds, 20 to 30, gusts up to 30, and then an ugly snow-rain mixture that certainly isn't going to help either of these quarterbacks. It's going to be an ugly game. This is a New England team that's about 65%, 67% hitting team total unders over their last 20 games. There's a lot to like there, but there's not a lot to like about this New England offense. We're seeing Ezekiel Elliott run out of gas as the season ends. There's O-line issues. Elliott has just 97 rushing yards over 37 carries spanning 3 games. So they're struggling to run the ball. Devontae Parker was injured last week. When you're getting guys like Mike Gesicki, pretty big reps, the offense is in trouble. Bailey Zappi won't be able to pass in this strong wind. It's going to be an issue here. And like I said, play to 14.5, but in a game with these weather conditions and possibly the Jets struggling to move the ball and giving New England some good field position, the kicking in New England this year has been epically horrendous. Chad Ryland, if you're a Patriots fan, the name Chad Ryland rolls off your tongue in disgust. He's a rookie kicker. He has the worst kicking percentage in all of football, sub 70%, and he's missing easy kicks. He's missed 7 of his 16 kicks from 30 to 50 yards, and now you're giving him, 30-mile-an-hour gusts, sustained 20-mile-an-hour, and these kicking conditions. It's not going to help. There's going to be points left on the board, even if they get good field position. 16.5 is big. There's not much of a difference between 16.5 and 14.5, honestly. So this number could get down to 14.5, but anything on the other side of the 14.5, I'm happy to fade them. I know you faded this offense basically all year too, Joe. It's one, like, if they're not getting pick sixes like we saw in the last couple of weeks, then there's not much this offense is doing.
Yeah, I like that play. It's going to be a low-scoring game. Often when these two teams do get together, it is low-scoring. Then you factor in the weather and a couple other conditions. The Jets' offense is just an all-time disgrace, too. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, we're always quick. Everyone in this industry is to give yourself a nice pat on the back when you're having a winning day or, you hit an easy winner. Do you remember what your worst bet of the season has been up until this point? Does anything stand out?
The worst bet, the worst bet is like, I had DK. I remember the fastest one was DK Metcalf under first play, 3rd and long, breaks coverage. Like, it was a tough ball and it was done on that first play. Is that a worst play? Is that my worst play? Probably not. I don't think the handicap was awful. He just broke off a long game. Like last night, I made some hockey plays where I got the worst number. Because there was a flu bug going around. There was some information that I missed as a handicap situation. Those are worse bets to make than actually just getting beat up on a DK touchdown that went 80 yards on 3rd and 11.
I remember when that happened. I thought of you right away. Now, I'm the guy, my worst bet of the season. I came on the show a couple weeks ago and recommended taking the Raiders going under their team total of 19.5. They went on to score 63 points in that game. They went over the team total. Now, that will go down as probably the biggest outlier of the entire season.
95% of the people were on that under too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That Thursday night game.
Yeah, and then what was it, the week before they got shut out or the week after? But yeah, it was something, just some pure insanity on that one.
Was that the Vegas game where I was on it too? And like, this team's played indoors for 7 weeks. You get Aiden O'Connell outside. He hasn't been out there since the team hasn't been out there since October. And then what happened.
Yeah, absolutely brutal. But that is the way she goes when you're betting every single day. You're going to have some absolute stinkers. Hopefully no stinkers here from us, though, today. Jingles, we will let you out the door here, but we'll have you right back here next week to talk about some more meaningful games going into the wild card round. So thanks for joining us, and best of luck with those bets.
Perfect. And don't sleep on Blaine Gabbert this week at 3.5.
Ooh, there we go. Yeah, might be something to consider for the people. Okay, some questions coming in the chat. We will get to those, but we're going to get to Brad Powers here first to discuss all things college football. So let's bring him in down there in sunny Las Vegas. Brad, I haven't seen you in the new year, so I think it's still okay to say Happy New Year, right?
Well, if you're a fan of Larry David, he says you can stop saying it after the 3rd of January. So I'll just say good to see you in 2024.
Right. I missed the cutoff there. Okay, so a few things to discuss too. Of course, the national championship game, but let's start by recapping a little bit of what we saw in the semifinals. 2 great games. Washington, Texas, very exciting shootout. Nice comeback by Michigan. They completely shut down the Alabama pass attack. So any big takeaways for you out of what we saw in the semifinals, either to carry forward into the national championship game or big picture going into next season?
Well, considering I had Texas versus Alabama in the title game, I was a little bit surprised that we're sitting here with Michigan and Washington. We'll start with the Rose Bowl game. I was surprised with Michigan's ability to dominate the line of scrimmage against Alabama for a majority of the game. Now, Alabama started finding some traction a little bit in the second half, but obviously Michigan, when they needed to go 75, 80 yards to get a touchdown to force overtime. They were able to do it. Kudos for Jim Harbaugh for being super aggressive, going for it on 4th down with 3 minutes left at your own 30-yard line. Kudos for that. Well, what surprised me, I mean, Alabama outcoached, significantly to start the game. I did not expect that, especially when you considered the recent history for both Michigan, the lack of success in postseason, and Alabama's great success when you give them a month to prepare. So that was surprising. Washington-Texas game, Washington's a tough team to power rate because when Penix is on, and we'll get to him, we'll talk more about him here in a second, but when he's on, I mean, he's as good as anybody in the country, maybe even the best in the country, especially throwing the ball 40, 50 yards down the field and the ability to put it right where only the wide receiver is the only guy that can make a play on the football. They're a tough team because for 6 games to end the regular season, this was not a great team. They almost lost to Arizona State. Probably should have lost that game. Almost lost to a terrible Stanford team. Outgained by Oregon State. Outgained by Washington State. It's a team that's won 10 straight games by 10 points or less. You change a couple of plays, it's a 2-loss team. So, yes, they are off back-to-back their best performances of the season in the 2 biggest games against Oregon and Texas, but something tells me this team's still a little bit overrated.
Okay, so Brad, you seem a little down on Washington here. So let's get into the game here on Monday night. We have Michigan favored by 4.5, a total of 55. Washington, an outright winner in 3 games as an underdog this season. But how do you analyze the spread and the total for this matchup?
My power ratings, and I stick to my power ratings when you're not dealing with opt-outs and coaches opting out and guys in the transfer portal and whatnot. It's a basic, pretty handicap for me. I start with my power ratings first and foremost. Power ratings save value on Michigan here, even though I've upgraded Washington significantly after their last 2 games. Look, it's the end of the season. I mean, we've got 14 games of sample size here. I've still upgraded Washington 4 points after the last 2 games. I think that's been pretty significant. Power ratings weren't necessarily significantly against Washington, even in their last game against Texas, but yet I got a little bit of an overlay here. My power ratings are closer to Michigan 6. Don't see that too often this time of the year, especially when you're not dealing with opt-outs. So I have bet Michigan. I'm not going to give them out as official best bet because I'm very price dependent. If anything about me, I know I have not had a good season. One thing I can do still to this day is get in front of numbers. If I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, Joe, I think there's some money going to come in on Washington. So let's wait and see if we can get a better price when I talk to you on Monday, and we'll have a best bet on the Michigan Wolverines at the best number available.
Okay, what about this total? 55.5. I'm a bit of a casual when it comes to college football, as you know, but it does seem a little bit high to me considering how we saw Michigan just completely shut down Alabama. Am I correct on that? Am I on the right path, or am I completely off? What do you think?
No. I mean, I think there's some correlation. If you like Washington, you're probably, what's their wheelhouse? Shootout. So you're thinking higher scoring. Michigan, which I kind of like. This is a high total for a Michigan game. I mean, we're talking about the number 1 scoring defense in the country. And you're right that they did shut down Alabama significantly in that game. Now, Washington's pass offense is much better than Alabama's. But Washington's also one-dimensional. Their starting running back, Dylan Johnson, got hurt in the final minute of the game against Texas. I'm not sure he's going to be 100%. So if you're one-dimensional and Michigan can, hopefully get a little bit of pass rush or some guys at least in Penix's face, I think they at least have a better ability to slow down Washington's offense more than the last 2 teams that Washington faced, especially with this. I think Michigan's best defense is their ability on the other side of the ball to win the line of scrimmage and run right at Washington. So if I had to bet it right now, I'd go under 55.5.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Michael Penix Jr. Of course, he's getting a lot of love in the media here this week in the build-up to the game. And my question to you is, do you think that he's underrated a little bit compared to the other top quarterback prospects going into the NFL draft? Of course, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, they all could go 1, 2, 3. If the draft was tomorrow, that I'd say it's close to a lock that they'd all go in the top 5, but you have those 3 guys, then it seems like you do have a bit of a drop-off. Penix Jr. and even Bo Nix getting a little bit of love here. I guess the big knock on Penix Jr. is he has that injury history. He is a little bit older here as well, but maybe we're seeing a little bit of DNA from this guy as a big game player. Great accuracy on those deep balls. So do you think people are sleeping on him maybe a little bit here, or is it maybe a prisoner of the moment type of situation?
Great question. Probably all the above, to be honest with you. You got to love the ability. I mean, obviously, this is more of a passing game league at the next level in the NFL. And there's not many guys can throw the ball 40, 50 yards down the field consistently with accuracy. He can do that. If all things were equal and you could set aside a very poor injury history. If we're just talking about right here, right now, I mean, I can make a case that Michael Penix is the best thrower of the football in college football right now. So, but you can't ignore when a guy has had significant injuries. And even this season, probably banged up. I mean, that might be one of the reasons why Washington struggled down the stretch. A lot of people speculated, including myself, after the first Oregon game, that he wasn't 100%. It's specifically his shoulder. He's also playing in a very offensive-driven system and a very talented head coach that might be able just to, might be a guy that can just scheme things up for him. So I'd be anxious. When he didn't have Kalen DeBoer coaching him at Indiana, there was a big difference if you look at his level of production from one year to the next. So that concerns me a little bit as well. Is he worth taking a flyer at the end of the first round, early second round? I think so.
Okay, let's end with this. So Penix Jr. getting a lot of love. Bowl season as a whole getting a lot of hate for the most part. A lot of people saying that bowl season is broken. A lot of this has to do with all the opt-outs. This was highlighted by Florida State and their embarrassing loss to Georgia. A lot of these games just seem like glorified exhibitions with a sponsor attached to them, more or less. So you can complain about it from that perspective. Some of the games are unwatchable, but from the players' perspective, you can kind of understand it that these guys are catching on a little bit. These games are essentially exhibitions. Bowl games don't mean as much as I used to. And if you're a guy who's projected to go in the NFL draft, why risk playing? So my question to you, do you think bowl season is broken? And is there anything that can be done to alleviate the problem with all these opt-outs?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly broken, and it's not some one-year thing. We're not overreacting here. I mean, it's been a steady decline really since the beginning of the BCS really started devaluing the bowls and what they meant because it all was just about the national championship game at that point. And it'll be starting next season all about the 12 teams that are in the bowls. With that being said, there's still some things I like, and I can adapt even though I'm on the wrong side of 40 now. I mean, I could see some positives. One positive would be, forget the 2023 season. I think it's a good precursor for the upcoming season. If you look at it in that characterization, hey, I get a chance to see these guys now in an actual game instead of waiting around to the beginning of next season to, what do we got here with this team? How many spring games do I have to watch to get a feel for these teams? I actually watched a lot of guys make their first career start in a bowl game, and I treated it more like a first game or an exhibition for the 2024 season rather than closing on the 2023 season. That's a positive. Now, what can we do to change? Well, this is a little bit deep in the weeds here. The calendar is broken on college football because in the month of December, in a 2-3 week period, you got teams prepping for bowl games. You got obviously players, significant players, key players opting out of bowl games. You have the transfer portal. You have to sign your recruiting class all in a couple-week period in December. That's what needs to be fixed. I don't know if it's pushing the transfer portal to January. I don't know if it's having the early signing day period in August instead of December. It needs to be fixed because you can't have the 3 or 4 biggest, most important things in the sport in a single calendar year all happening in a 2-3 week period. It's not good for the coach's health, to be honest with you. We're going to have a lot of the great talented coaches of college football are going to be saying adios and going to the NFL at any given chance.
Okay, yeah, I do think that the expanded playoff will help a little bit
here
as well. Absolutely. But yeah, I do like the thought about maybe getting a little bit of a jump on next season by seeing some players that maybe ordinarily you wouldn't be seeing. So good stuff from Brad there. Brad, we will leave it at that, but we'll have you back on Monday. We will lock in that official best bet. We'll take a look at some props, maybe some live betting angles. Yep. And also, we will look ahead to next season. The futures board is up for next season's national championship there. We'll see if there's any teams that we should have on our radar. So, Brad, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you again on Monday.
All right. Thanks for having me, Joe. Look forward to it.
Yes, sir. Great spot with Brad. Okay, question here from Adam Rockwell. What are your thoughts on NFL players who are chasing contract incentives this week? Do you look to bet any of these? Happy New Year, and best of luck with your bets this year. Not really. That's an angle that I think maybe got maxed out a couple years ago, where this information wasn't readily available to people in terms of what the contract incentives were, in terms of numbers that people need to hit. But the most important thing here is that if you guys have access to this information of this guy needs X number of yards or X number of touchdowns, whatever it might be, this number of sacks, if we have access to it, so do the sports books. So that's going to be cooked into the line. Now, are some of these guys going to reach their incentives? Absolutely. And some of them won't. So it's not really as much of an edge as it used to be. It's worth taking a look at. It's interesting. If you're playing like in a DFS league, it might be worth incorporating into. But yeah, see if the value is still there. If the numbers are getting elevated a lot, based on what they normally are, that means the value is just completely sucked out of it. So good question there by Adam. But I don't think at this point here in 2024 now, there's a lot of incentive in using that angle for your bets. Okay, NBA here. There's just 2 games tonight. 2 pretty good, 2 interesting games. Giannis versus Wemby, which I think is their first head-to-head because Wemby sat out the first time the Spurs and Bucks played this season. And then we have Nuggets, Warriors in Golden State. Just one pick for me here. I'm going to go with the Bucks, -9 in San Antonio. Now, you might be thinking, Joe, it's the second game of a back-to-back for the Bucks. Are you crazy? Well, I am crazy, but besides the point, Milwaukee, not every team... People think that just because a team's in the second game of a back-to-back, they're going to lose. That's not the case for a lot of teams. It is not the case for the Milwaukee Bucks. They've actually been great in the second game of back-to-backs. 13-3-1 ATS in this spot since last season, the start of last season. Wins and covers in this spot this season versus good teams like the Heat, the Mavs, and the Houston Rockets. Advantages everywhere for the Milwaukee Bucks. Last 10 games, they rank in the top 5 in both EFG percentage and opponent EFG percentage. The Spurs are in the bottom 7 in each of those categories. So major strengths versus major weaknesses here. And the Bucks can't afford to take anyone lightly right now. This is not a letdown spot. They're coming off of 2 straight losses to the Indiana Pacers, who somehow have their number. Recaps. Okay, and San Antonio is a team that routinely gets obliterated. Don't be scared off by the big number. Their average loss comes by 15.5 points, 6 double-digit losses in their last 9 games alone. The Bucks did beat them by 13 points back on December 19th, but they killed them in that game. They're up by 22 going into the fourth quarter, and they took their foot off the gas a little bit. So, yeah, I like the Bucks to absolutely obliterate the Spurs tonight as my lone bet for the NBA. Probably have a few more tomorrow. Then John Metler kicking up his heels down to Florida. He'll be back with us next week, and we'll be back to regular business here in the NBA. It feels weird doing a show with no Thursday night football game. We're going to have to figure out what to do post-football season around here. We'll probably get into a lot of college basketball. It'll be a big basketball show. And then, of course, Major League Baseball is right around the corner. Maybe incorporate a little bit of NHL as well. Maybe do an occasional PGA preview for you golf guys out there. But big show coming tomorrow. It is our Big Friday show where we break down all of our best bets here for Sunday's games. Quick heads up, if you're just tuning in now, I gave out my best bets for Saturday's NFL games. Big under night for me. Steelers, Ravens, under 35.5. Texans, Colts, first half, under 23.5 to recap those bets. We're going to leave it at that, guys. If you like the show, let us know by simply hitting that like button right down there and hit that subscribe button right down there as well. Lots of great content here on the Covers YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining us for another edition of Before You Bet. We will see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. Best of luck with your bets tonight. Woo!